truly we're in the early days of new surprises and adventures. So I don't think anyone has clarity on these issues. But if I try to understand what Trump is doing and saying, it's basically a kind of great power politics where the U.S. says there are three big powers, Russia, China, and the U.S. will basically divide the turf. And probably, if I interpret Trump and he follows through, we'll divide the turf and we'll stay out of each other's way. So I think he wants to end the war in Ukraine, and I think he will, by the way. I don't see the U.S. continuing to arm or finance Ukraine to fight a losing war. And I think basically Trump says Russia's big power. Why are we at war with Russia and Ukraine? He has said he understands that Putin doesn't like NATO on his border, and he says, I understand that. And by the way, if Russia ever tried this stunt in the Western Hemisphere, in Cuba or in Mexico or any place in the Western Hemisphere, we'd immediately be at war over it. So one interpretation which is possible is Trump's means what he says. I like Putin, Russia's great power. I like President Xi, China's great power. We'll stay in our lane, you stay in your lane, China stays in its lane. But our lane includes Greenland and Panama and Canada. Yeah, we're the Western Hemisphere. We're the hegemon of the Western Hemisphere. No one, neither Russia nor China, is going to tell us what to do. We don't like the submarines snooping around Greenland. We don't want them anywhere close to us. That's the 21st century version of the Monroe Doctrine. And so one plausible, possible interpretation of Trump is to say the Western Hemisphere is ours, and we're not going to bother you in Ukraine. We're not going to bother you in Taiwan. Now, if that's the interpretation, one thing is important and positive. That would reduce the chance of nuclear war. It really would, because this stupidity of the U.S. to need to put NATO into Ukraine, or to be arming Taiwan by billions of dollars, or to be talking about an East Asian NATO. This is crazy. This brings us really closer to nuclear war. So Trump is better at that. Of course, if he's serious, we're going to grab Greenland, we're going to take Canada, we're going to take Panama. Oh my God, we're in for a lot of instability. There's adventures ahead. Trump says a lot of bullshit. So one shouldn't take it all that seriously right now, except if I were Europe, I would still get my act together and stop all of the Western values rhetoric and talk about a European security arrangement. But I think that it's just possible that Trump pulls the great powers back from the brink of confrontation, because Biden was bringing us closer to war with China and active war with Russia. Biden was not doing his job of making America more secure. He was making America less secure.
Lassen Sie uns mal nach Russland kommen. Sie waren selbst in Russland in den 90er Jahren als Berater. Ich habe vor einigen Jahren gelesen im Spiegel, dass Sie bereuen würden, dass die russische Rohstoffindustrie privatisiert wurde. Da sind ja viele neoliberale Reformen geschehen, ein bisschen so wie die Schocktherapie bei Naomi Klein. Würden Sie sagen, dass Putin eine Kreatur der Schockstrategie ist?
I didn't regret privatization. I didn't have anything to do with the privatization of the natural resources. I opposed it. I want everyone to understand very clearly. My role was one thing: to try to help mobilize Western financial support to help stabilize Russia. And the United States and Germany and others said, no, we're not helping. Okay? So what I tried to do, which was to make a soft landing for a country in crisis, was rejected. That was my role, trying to help prevent a crisis. But the people in Washington who were stupid, ignorant of economics, arrogant, and viewing Russia as a foe rather than as a country that wanted just peaceful, normal relations, rejected the most basic things that you do to help a country have financial stabilization. I had nothing to do with natural resources or privatization. I opposed all the corruption. I resigned early because I was trying to raise funds to help Russia stabilize, and it was not accepted. Now, I've written about this at length. People are welcome to look at what I've written just to understand that. But because I was a widely known name, lots of things were attributed to me that were the opposite of what I said. Well, that was my learning about how the media works. And the media works in very strange ways, but it often is not exactly very accurate. So the point is that Russian stabilization could have been a lot smoother, faster, better for Russia, better for the world. Incidentally, where I learned about this was from Germany's post-World War I experience, because my guiding understanding came from John Maynard Keynes, who in 1919 wrote a book criticizing the Versailles Treaty, a very famous book called The Economic Consequences of the Peace. And he said the Versailles Treaty is too harsh on Germany. It will lead to crisis and backlash. And God, what he said came to pass tragically. And so I learned from that from the earliest days of my career. And what I said in 1990, 91, 92, 93, before I resigned from this attempt, was don't replay the mistake of 1919. Help Russia to stabilize. That's what I said. And I was right. And the Americans were foolish, nasty, hubristic. And what I didn't know then was that that would continue for the next generation. Stupid is the word I use, because they don't know how to make peace. And I'm hoping that they'll finally learn something about this. But until now, through all of these administrations, I dealt with every one of them. I dealt with the last year of the Bush senior administration. I dealt with the Clinton administration. I dealt with the Bush junior administration, with the Obama administration, with Trump, with Biden. They don't know how to make peace, these people. They're arrogant. They think the U.S. runs the show. They don't know how to help other countries that are in need. And then they are surprised when things don't work out their way. They're reckless, they're gamblers, they're ignorant. And this, I think, is a big problem.
Wir haben jetzt von Ökonomie gesprochen, neoliberaler Ökonomie. Sie haben auch von der Inkompetenz der Politiker gesprochen, was ökonomische Fragen betrifft. Wir haben in Deutschland durchaus auch damit zu tun. Wir haben immer noch die Folgen der Reaganomics auch hier zu spüren. Wir machen hier neoliberale Politik. Es gibt hier so einen Begriff, der heißt Schuldenbremse. Das ist nicht nur ein Begriff, sondern das ist, das, was es besagt. Die Schuldenbremse eben, man kann nicht so viel Schulden aufnehmen. Wie sehen Sie das als Ökonom? Ist das was Vernünftiges?
The basic idea of debt is that you borrow if the investment that the debt is going to finance has a high rate of return for society. So it's often right to borrow if it's investing in infrastructure or in research and development or in other ways that raise the capacity of the economy, the productivity of the economy, the growth of the economy. The idea that you don't borrow is only right if you're borrowing for consumption in a way that's unsustainable so that you're really eating up the future. But if you're borrowing for investment, it's the opposite. The problem with our budgets, we don't have a capital budget and a current budget. So we don't distinguish clearly what is the spending for. We make a very simple line and we make a very simple number. And then if you want to borrow for something quite important, that is an investment in the future that's going to raise the income and the productivity and the tax revenues in the future, the rule tells you, no, you can't do that because we don't have even the right basic model. And I'm engaged with this many times in poorer countries where the poor country doesn't have electricity, it doesn't have digital access, it can't even afford to get or keep the kids in school. And I know as a development economist, the rate of return to those activities is extremely high. So I say, yes, you don't have the current revenue to do that, but you should borrow because it will lead to economic growth, it will lead to higher incomes, and you'll be able to repay the debt out of something more in the future. The IMF tells them, no, don't borrow, just learn to live without electricity. So no, I don't like these arbitrary rules. I think we're much more sophisticated. We should, of course, have a vision of the economy, but not just a nice poetic vision, but a numerical, quantified vision of what borrowing would be, what investment would be, what kind of growth, what the future capacity, what the fiscal policies would be, and then we could think about these things. By the way, one country that finances investment on a large scale is China. Now they save a lot, but they also invest a lot. And look what they're getting. They're getting very rapid growth, and they're 50,000 kilometers of fast rail. The United States has 0 right now. We finance wars with our deficits. They finance high-speed rail. So I would rather that all of us have investment budgets that make sense for the future.
Ich will mal polemisch fragen nach Wladimir Putin und den Amerikanern. Die amerikanischen Eliten verachten ihn genauso wie unsere. Könnte das daran liegen, dass Wladimir Putin der Bekämpfer der Oligarchie in Russland war und der im Grunde, das bekämpft, was die Eliten in Amerika sind, Oligarchen?
No, I don't think that this is the root of it. The root of it is very basic, and it goes back 180 years, in fact. Russia is a big country. And so the British Empire hated Russia because Russia, to them, was a competitor. The United States hates Russia because Russia is a competitor. It's as simple as that. It's very fascinating to understand the first Crimean War, which was 1853 to 1856. It's almost the same as the current Ukraine war. It was, in the case of the first Crimean War, Britain and France trying to push Russia out of the Black Sea. And in fact, they did so for many years. They besieged Sevastopol, and Russia fell, and they forced Russia to dismantle its Black Sea fleet. Now, why did they do that? Russia was not a threat to France or to Britain, but the British Empire said, oh, Russia's big, maybe they're going to invade India through Central Asia, and they concocted a fairy tale that Russia had no intention of doing, and came to the conclusion that Russia was a sworn enemy, which was ironic because Russia and Britain had been allies against Napoleon in the Napoleonic Wars. So a very good history was written by a historian named Gleason, published in 1970, on the origins of Russophobia. How did Britain come to hate Russia? And he read everything, studied every speech, every debate in the British Parliament for decades. And the conclusion after several hundred pages is there was no reason for the Russophobia other than the British Empire resenting Russia. That's all. Now, I've been through this for more than 35 years. I sat face to face with Boris Yeltsin when he said, we want to be normal country, peaceful, cooperative, democracy, market economy. And I said to him, President Yeltsin, I'm going to get you support from the United States. And I failed to do so because Washington gave me the finger, basically. Now, why? Not because of anything Russia did, not because of any action, not because of Putin, not because of anything except the American so-called strategists wanted to dismantle Russia the same way that they thought they had dismantled the Soviet Union. In fact, as soon as the Soviet Union fell, okay, the next step is decolonize or dismantle Russia. This is how they think. And the Americans, it's very strange. Not strange, maybe it's perfectly understandable, but for me it's very strange. If the Americans have an adversary and the adversary says, we'd like peace with you, that means to the Americans, we better bomb them because they're weak right now, because they're asking for peace. That means we can defeat them. This is what's happening with Iran right now. The Iranians for the last 2 years have been sending signals to first the Biden administration, now to the Trump administration. I know it, by the way, because I speak to a lot of people. And the signal is we want peace, we want to negotiate. Oh, from the American and the Israeli point of view, now we should go get them. They're weak. That's the mentality of a bully. That's what this is about. It's not anything specific that Putin has done. It's just, this is bullying from a country, the United States, that says we run the world. And they don't even make anything about that. They write books about the U.S. running the world. This is not a secret exactly. They call it liberal hegemony. I don't know what the liberal part is, but the hegemony is very clear. This is the ideology, this is the attempt, this is the arrogance, and unfortunately it's getting us into a lot of trouble. Maybe Trump will do something different.
Jeffrey, die Zeit drängt, das weiß ich, aber eine kurze Frage zum Abschluss. Sie sind einer der wenigen Intellektuellen aus Amerika, die sich um einen sachlichen Umgang mit Russland bemühen. Mir fallen da eine Handvoll anderer ein. Woran liegt das? Also in Deutschland ist es ja genauso, aber woran liegt das, dass man von den Intellektuellen so wenig Widerworte zur herrschenden Politik vernimmt?
I think it's probably my good fortune to have a career where I have spent time all over the world, worked with governments all over the world, worked with the societies all over the world, found people likable everywhere, by the way. Very basic point, but every place I've worked, the Middle East, the Arab region, all through Africa, China, Central Asia, Latin America, every place that I've worked, people have been incredibly hospitable. Culture is wonderful. A lot of beauty, charm, diversity. So first of all, sounds stupid and naive maybe, but I like the whole world. You know, I don't feel it's us against anybody. I really like being in China. I have lots of friends, lots of students. I admire lots about the government. I've had many wonderful colleagues in Russia and in many other places. So for more than 40 years, I've seen the United States from outside looking in. Plus, knowing all the people inside. Some have been my students, some have been my colleagues, some have been my teachers, but I've known them. It's not that I'm looking at something far away. I'm watching pretty close up. I've had conversations with presidents that made my head spin because it was not what you want from an American president. And so I think it's probably how I've learned over time and my experience, and I kind of would like the world to live together peacefully. And I, as an economist, believe that there's enough to go around for everybody to live a decent life. So all of this great struggle, I don't believe in at all. The worst of humanity in this country, the worst of humanity in general, has come from the us versus them thinking and this panic that there's only so much to go around. So we better invade, we better grab Lebensraum, we better do whatever. This is all wrong economically. It's morally atrocious, but it's all wrong economically as well. So I know that this crazy anti-China business or this anti-Russia business makes no sense from an economic point of view, but also it makes no sense when I watch the actual events. So that's, I suppose, why I have come to this kind of viewpoint.
Jeffrey, thank you very much. It was really a great honor for me.
Great pleasure for me and a great conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.